Hey folks, this is Mark Devine with the Unbeatable Mind podcast. Thanks so much for joining me today. Super appreciate it. As you know, I do not take it lightly because your time is valuable, so we're going to get right in it. I'm here with my good friend, Bedros Keuilian.
Keulian, man. Bedros Keuilian. I knew this was going to happen. Do not edit this out.
Bedros Keuilian, who's now named Coolio.
Right, like the rapper.
Like the rapper, right. He's awesome. I'm at his headquarters at Fit Body Boot Camp.
Yes, sir.
Bedros, man, you rock.
Thanks for coming out, man.
I love you. You're awesome.
Likewise.
We just also, I was on his podcast, Empire Show.
Yep.
Yeah, which is a great podcast. Check it out. You know, I'm sure you know about Bedros, especially if you read the show notes. Bedros, the founder of Fit Body Boot Camp, one of the fastest growing fitness businesses and kind of revolutionized fitness in a large extent. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about business. We're going to talk about Armenia and growing up in fucked up childhoods like both of us did. It depends on how much time we really want to go. We could probably spend hours and hours and hours chatting about all sorts of interesting things. And also like how we pivoted and got through the pandemic. You know, everyone's dealing with that kind of stuff. But thanks so much for joining me today or letting me join you. I'm in your studio.
Thank you for coming out, man. Really appreciate you.
Yeah. So I first met Bedros and he told his version of this story a little while ago when my friend Shane, who was a Navy SEAL, who trained with me. Shane was one of our SEAL Fit athletes.
He told me that, that's right.
He trained with me at the SEAL Fit Training Center. We used to, back in the day when I had the SEAL Fit Training Center downtown Encinitas, we had 8 to 10 SEAL trainees, candidates, who either lived with us or they were local, and then we'd come every day, train all day long. Every one of them made it into the SEALs, you know, over the years.
What a head start that gave them.
Huge.
Right?
Great guy. So he introduced us. You reached out, was able to help you out with an issue that you had. And then I'm sitting there one day, and I got this cryptic text from you, like 3 weeks earlier, like, look out for some package. And I was like, oh God, did I do something wrong?
Tick, 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 tick.
He's sending me shit. This guy's Armenian. What do they do over there? But I packed that away, didn't think too much about it. And then one day this box shows up, and it's all these steaks, these Wagyu steaks. And I'm thinking, I didn't even know what a Wagyu steak was. That's kind of like I'm literally buried so deeply in my own work that I don't.
Wait, you really didn't know what a Wagyu steak was?
I did not know what a Wagyu steak. I've heard of Kobe steak. I'd never heard of it. Actually, it's a freaking box of Wagyu steaks, and I'm like, oh, interesting. That's a really nice gift. And so I texted Bedros and I said, hey, you know, do you want me to bring them up here to eat, or do you want to come down and join me? We're gonna barbecue.
That was such a cool approach, man. Really, I told you, like, I've sent steaks to like 600 people. No one has been like, hey, you want to eat this together?
Really?
Yeah, you were the first one.
It seemed like the natural thing to do. I wanted to share them with you. Anyways, I know this isn't that interesting to you, but it's funny. So we come up and have the steak, had a phenomenal time. Bedros, your family is amazing.
Thank you, sir.
Really, so cool. And Sandy and I, my wife, we just had a blast. And I got home, and the steak was unreal. Like, it was otherworldly.
Right?
And so I get home, and I go on the website of
Debraga.
Debraga. Once again, Debraga, if you're listening, you need to sponsor these podcasts. And I'm like, I'm going to order some more of that Wagyu steak. Mind you, Bedros sent me like 10 of them or something like that.
Yeah.
And I get on there and I'm like, oh my God, they're like $120 a piece. That was like some...
I wonder if they're just overpriced.
Of course they are. It's marketing. Anyway, so that was my introduction to Bedros. What a great guy you are. And man, what an interesting life. So you were born in...
I'm just laughing. This whole episode for your show is going to be a shit show because I'm just laughing and crying like we did at dinner.
Let's just hope that we actually can say some funny things so people can laugh with us.
Right, I'm really laughing.
Instead of just listening to us laughing the whole time. So speaking of laughing, you had me in absolute stitches when I was up here at your place telling me about your father. The Armenian guy. So you tell us about your childhood,
dude.
What were the crazy things that experiences that you had, and you know, who shaped you? You know, not that you know, we know about some of the we all had our negative experiences, but
Yeah.
what were some of the really cool, crazy things that helped shape who you are?
Well, for one, to have a father who was a member of the Communist Party in the Soviet Union.
Doesn't happen for too many people in this country.
No. And one of the coolest things that would happen in Armenia, so we lived there until I was 6 years old. And then in 1980, when I was 6, we escaped the Soviet Union. And the story was that we're going on a little vacation to Italy, because Italy at the time.
And because he was a Communist Party member, he could do that, right?
Yes,
he got
because Italy was a Communist Party sympathizer.
Yeah.
So it made sense that we would go to Italy, because if he says, like, hey, we're going on vacation to the United States, like,
No,
yeah, right.
red flag, right?
Yeah. And of course, we did go to Italy, and from there we beelined it right to the American consulate. My dad said, hey, we're political refugees. I'm defecting from the Soviet Union. I'm a member of the Communist Party. I have information. I'll give you whatever you need, so long as you let us enter the United States. 10 days later, we were in the U.S.
No kidding.
Yeah, flew into JFK.
Wow.
And I do know now why. I did wonder as a kid, like, why are we going to California? But Armenia specifically, very cold, and my dad didn't want to see any more snow, any more rain. So he's like, Southern California it is. That's how we ended up here.
We're going to go to freedom, and we're going to go to warmth.
Right, exactly.
Smart guy.
But so imagine this. He was a member of the Communist Party, but he wore Jordache jeans, he wore Nikes, he wore Ray-Ban sunglasses, and he would listen to the Beach Boys and Elvis. Like, he was the most Americanized communist on the planet, right?
Interesting.
And he had this, so in Armenia, the passport, or Soviet Union, all the passports are red. He had a really, really dark red one that he would keep in a drawer he would never use. That passport was a sign that he's a member of the Communist Party. So he could walk into any store and do an inspection and do whatever he needs to do in support of the Communist Party for that, if they feel that the person working at that store is stealing taking money under the table.
Just being a member of the Communist Party gave you that kind of control over
Yes.
the populace.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. And
By
so,
the way, I'm curious how,
Yeah.
like, of the total population of Armenia, how many people were in the Communist Party?
16%.
16%.
16%.
And did you have to be invited, or do you get to join? I mean,
Yes.
can you like pay your way in? Like,
No.
Go to the website. I want to be
apply like the PPP program
Right.
these days. Yeah. No, dude, that's a great story, because then we come to the United States. You stay, once you live here for 5 years, you can apply to become a citizen.
Right.
Right. And so, being a minor, I needed my mom and dad to both become citizens, and automatically I become one. My dad failed the citizenship 3 times, passed on the 4th time, because they were like, well, why were you a member of the Communist Party? He's like, look, I didn't have a choice. Like, no, you actually did have a choice. He's like, well, I did have a choice, but if I said no, so they ask you, hey, Mark, you've worked your way up into loyalty. Would you like to be a member of the Communist Party? And if you say no, you're being shipped off to Siberia, man, and never to be seen again, right?
They disappear.
Yeah, and so your response needs to be, what an honor. I'm speechless. Yes, please, how can I serve Mother Russia? And so you do. And so that's how he became a member of the Communist Party. And then he takes his little dark red passport and he throws it in the drawer. And my brother, who's 14 years older than me, so imagine he's 18, he takes my dad's passport and he uses it to take girls on a date. So he gets free food, free taxi rides, because you show that to anyone in town and they know exactly who you are,
Right.
and they're going to treat you like royalty. And so many times, like, other party members, because he would literally go into like other parts of the community, so imagine if like the police department, like maybe the cops know you in your town, but you go into the neighboring town and the cops like drag you back and like, hey, this guy's doing stupid stuff. So my dad would just slap his ass around left and right. We were definitely raised by the hand. He called it the 5 brothers.
The 5 brothers.
Yeah, he goes, you want the 5 brothers? No, I don't. It didn't matter. Why are you asking anyway? You're going to hit me, right?
Right.
And so anyway, he's a gentleman now. But
I imagine, okay, so I don't want to go down this rabbit hole
Yeah.
too long, but I've been pretty open on this podcast about my father having his own 5-finger plan. And he actually had a 5-finger extended it to the belt. He loved the belt. So that was fairly effective.
yeah.
And my brother and I, my brother actually took the brunt of it, to be honest. We shared a room. 2 quick stories that might spark some memories, right? We shared a room, and my brother's bed, unfortunate for him, was closest to the door.
Yeah.
And so we'd be, doing our thing. And of course, because we knew that making a lot of noise would piss my dad off, and trigger him,
Yeah.
we did it. Because we just wanted to piss him off and trigger him. And next thing you know, he's running up the stairs, and we had this big winding staircase. We could imagine the belt coming off, you know, in our minds. It's like, there's the belt, it's coming off. And it's got it raised above his head, and the door would fly open, and it'd be like, wham,
Wow.
wham, wham, hit Brad. And like, maybe 50% of the time, he would blow his steam on Brad and look at me and go, same to you, shithead.
So you would just create more
I'd be
noise.
like- and then Brad's like, not fair.
Did he ever try and switch beds with you?
Yeah, I did actually. I was like, no way, dude. And then the other fun story, like these are crazy memories.
Oh
you
my
know,
God.
We can laugh now because I've done a lot of work, right?
Yeah.
That's violence, that's aggression, and it's abuse.
Yeah.
What you went through was abuse.
Yes.
You have to unwind that stuff
Yeah.
later in life, or else, you know, it stays with you.
Yeah, it messes you up.
But one really fond memory I have, and this again is at my dad's expense. This is at an earlier house than this other one, but my brother's still in this bedroom, and it's an attic room. And the door to get in, you have to step up and duck down if you're a tall guy. But for us kids, you know, we just jump over them.
And you're in.
So we're doing our thing. Rah, 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 shut up. Rah, rah, rah. It takes like 3 shut-ups, you know. And finally, here it comes. Oh, shit. He's running up the stairs. His belt's coming off. He's running down the hall. And we're cowering. All we hear is like, boom.
Oh, shoot. He hit his head.
He smashed his head and knocked himself completely out.
Oh, my God.
And we're just like hovering over him like, is he alive? Anyways, back to you. I told you,
That reminds me of a great story.
I knew it would trigger something.
It did. So imagine being a foreigner in any country. The first words you learn are usually the foul words, right?
Right.
And so, you know, we come to the United States. We're living in Section 8 housing, which is government-assisted housing, for those of you who don't know. And it's not always the best housing. And my dad's got a paper route. He's working, so 2 a.m. he's delivering papers, and then he goes and pumps gas at a gas station after that. And then after that shift is over, he works at a pizzeria as a busboy washing dishes.
Wow.
So he's pissed
How
off.
old is he now?
At that, he's so 47 years old.
Okay.
Right?
That's what you are right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
And so he's 47 years old. And, you know, my older brother's working, my older sister's working. I'm the baby of the family, 6 years old, at home with mom. And so I learn, in the apartment complex, I learned the F word. Mm-hmm. And when you learn the F word, everything was like, fuck, 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 fuck. I was just fucking everything, right? Because it was the F word, man.
Of course. It's a big discovery at that age.
And apparently my mom knew, so I come into the house and I'm just like F-bombing everything. And my mom's like, in Armenia, you better stop this, otherwise your dad's going to give you a whooping when he gets home. I'm not going to stop it. Like, it's a lovely, beautiful word, and I just learned. You know, so he gets home, she tells him, and there's this like window that's got a couch in front of it. And for just like this wall here, there's like a little bit of room, not this much room, there's a little bit of room to get behind the couch. And so my dad's like, come here. I'm like, nope. And I don't know where he gathered all, dude, he had about 80 keys on 2 key rings clipped together. I don't know.
Probably most of them for Armenian.
Probably, like, he wasn't that important of a man when you're like delivering newspapers and, you know, working at he had like this.
He just didn't want to throw anything away, which is part of the culture.
I think that was it. Yeah. And so I've got myself between that window and the couch. I'm like, I'm not getting out. And he's trying to, you know, we're playing the cat and mouse game. So he goes, get over here or else. And he's going to throw the keys at me. And so he does, and I duck, and he smashes the window. And he gave me a beating of a lifetime, because now the apartment complex is going to charge him for it. And man, I got a beating so bad from him that my mom had to literally dive in. You know, like in not WWE, in the MMA fights at UFC,
yeah.
where the guy's just gone berserk and the other guy's gone limp. And
they
so
have
the
to
ref
jump
has
on
to
them, right?
jump in and just grab. My mom had to jump in and just hold him and hold me and separate us. And as soon as I got free, I beelined it to the restroom, locked the door, like, but I can laugh about this shit now. And I know people watching are like, how can you guys laugh about this? Because I've done the work. You've done the work. We've processed through it. And I realized that anger, that rage came from just a lifetime of abuse that he had gone through.
That's right. You know, interestingly enough, what I've also learned is that there's positives come out of that stuff. Like, it drives me crazy when someone's like all victim.
Yeah.
Because of abuse, and then they get stuck. They get locked in the victim. They don't see the positive that came out of it. Like for me, I wouldn't have been a Navy SEAL if my dad hadn't been who he was.
Right.
right? When I went to SEAL training, you couldn't hurt me. There's not a damn thing that instructor could do to hurt me.
Right.
Because they had nothing on my dad. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, you knew how to check out, disassociate,
And I knew how to
compartmentalize.
I was a great warrior. In fact, I'm willing to bet that a good percentage of special ops guys had abuse.
Yeah.
And the smart ones deal with the negative side of it, or else it does creep up on you.
Yeah.
And it causes you to make decisions that you're not aware of, where they're coming from. They call that the shadow. Right? And so your shadow creeps up on you. It can show up as an addiction, PTS. In fact, I was talking about this with my wife the other day, and with some really senior SEALs, how we're noticing now that military vets are showing symptoms of post-traumatic stress before they go to combat. And I said, I know why. The reason is they already have trauma. And what we see in severe cases of post-traumatic stress is that the combat magnifies that trauma tenfold, hundredfold. But the trauma pre-existed combat. And so the stress of going to combat is already starting to trigger the trauma.
Yeah.
You know, I have a friend, Josh Mance, who says trauma doesn't discriminate, and everybody has trauma at some level, right? Even if you don't have an abusive family or father, which I don't know what percentage of people do or don't, but I know it's not uncommon, especially our generation.
Right.
But everyone's going to experience some trauma because, you know, first couple years, they say the first 5 years of life will determine the next 95. And even, you know, with loving parents, there's times where you're left alone, there's times where things happen, and the undifferentiated mind of a child that doesn't have any ego separation is traumatized.
Right. Right. And until that mind is able to process what it's gone through, that trauma will show up in the marriage, in the business, in that person's just personal health, mental health.
Yeah.
And then when you think about as a warrior, as you guys are training for combat, of course it's going to get triggered.
It's going to get triggered.
Why wouldn't it?
Right.
I realized that arguments with my wife when we first got married, I would react, and only looking back, I can admit that she was right.
That's a big man.
She's not
Took
in the
some
room.
therapy for you to be able to say that.
Yeah. Actually, it took 16 months of therapy, but only in hindsight, she would go, "Look, dude, you're giving me a level 10 reaction to a level 3 fight that we're having." But I realize now, looking back, through the help of Kevin Downing, who I told you earlier was my therapist, who I worked with for 16 months, that our argument would trigger a traumatic event for me that took place as a kid.
And transferred all that into the argument. Right.
I'm literally fighting that battle from 20 some odd years ago, and she's just like, all I did was leave the damn light on. Right? And it has to get processed. And if we don't process the trauma, it does show up in the darndest places, man. It really does.
Yeah. So this is an interesting thing. I want to stay on that track, but I want to bring it back to the positive, right? So like the positives from my childhood was, you know, really successful Navy SEAL leader, and enough business savvy because my family was in business to then, you know, become an entrepreneur and then fail my way forward to some success. But I never really experienced the true success that I knew I was capable of until I started the emotional work and went deep. And I wondered if your experience was similar. Because you've started, you know, a number of businesses, but, you know, now Fit Body Boot Camp is really over the past 5 years now. What happened during the pandemic is a little hiccup.
Yeah, a little hiccup.
A small little speed bump.
Losing over 100 locations was a little hiccup.
It'll come back. It'll rebound. You know, just like they say, the economy's going to rebound.
But even that, I could sit here and laugh about, right? Like that.
If you didn't do the emotional work, it'd be hard to laugh about that.
It would be very hard to laugh about it. But I've done the emotional work, and I've got the confidence. And I can tell you here, like as sure as I'm going to take my next breath, that Fit Body Boot Camp will have twice the locations by the end of 2022 that it did
going into
the pandemic. And it's simply because, like a rubber band, the pandemic just pulled us and stretched us, tested us, and now I feel like we just let go of the rubber band and we've just launched. Like, I'm doing 2 and 3 Zoom calls a day now. And the Zoom call is the last thing that I do when we award a new franchise to someone. So when our sales team qualifies them, make sure they share the same core
Now
values.
it's time to bring in the boss, right?
Yeah, so I do a Zoom call making sure that, hey, look, we're going to be business partners. Here's what I expect of you. Here's what you can expect of us, blah, blah, blah. And off we go. And during the 10, 11 months of the pandemic, we had brought on 5 locations. And just this month alone, we're set to bring on 4.
And you lost a lot of locations.
Yeah, we lost over 100 locations
Yeah.
out of 600 locations that we had.
Crazy.
Yeah.
So, but how many years ago did you start FitBody?
2012 is when we
2012.
franchised. Yeah.
And I guess where I was going with this is like starting a business, and there's a lot of entrepreneurs and business people who listen to this podcast, and doing the kind of like, and I used to talk about it when I started the Coronado Brewing Company. Like I launched a beautiful business, and Coronado Brewing Company brews like 40,000 barrels a year today, and it's really successful. But I'm not involved anymore because of the emotional piece, right? It's easy to do the nuts and bolts. It's easy to be task focused and like, man, you know, if you're a smart guy, you're strong, or woman, and you can just drive forward. And this is the model for American business, is like go, 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 do, get the strategy, get the tactics, you know, go. But there's real limitations, especially in this world that we call the VUCA world, with that approach.
Yep.
And what's missing is the deep awareness from the emotional development, intuitive development, spiritual strength. And so I'm curious how that side of you played into the decisions, especially once you started and you realized that this is hard work.
Well, for me, I learned very quickly, and again, I'm a slow learner, so I learned.
Me too.
There you go.
That's why we like each other.
That's true. I literally learned because I thought I was having a heart attack. In fact, as you know, we've got my book sitting up here. The first chapter is titled "The Morning of My Heart Attack" because I'm 46 years old now. At 37 years old, I thought I was having a heart attack because I experienced my first panic attack. I experienced my first panic attack because I hadn't done the deep work. And I was just white knuckling, following process, marketing funnels, building a team, having a product, making sure we have sales squared away. All those processes, like you said, any trained monkey can follow that. But your growth in business is literally, there's a glass ceiling on it. And that glass ceiling is determined by the level of development.
That's right, 100%.
Emotional development, mental development,
We said earlier,
leadership
you
development.
have to be the person that's worthy of taking it to the next level.
Bingo. And so I would hit up against that glass ceiling, Mark, and I would find myself going back to bad habits of taking excessive amounts of Vicodin to quiet my brain at night. In the morning, through a string of friends that I have, I'd found my way to Adderall. And so Vicodin and NyQuil, overuse of NyQuil. I'm not talking about the little cap. The cap gets thrown out. You drink half the bottle,
can see where this
chase
is
it with a
going,
few
yeah.
Vicodin, and then you fall asleep to quiet the mind, only to wake up and have coffee, pre-workout, and a few Adderall pills just to get started. So I found that every time I would hit up against this glass ceiling, I would go back to the vices. I would go back to emotional eating, and I would just start suffering in silence, which means me and my wife became these passing ships in the night.
Right.
And it wasn't until that panic attack that I had, which I really did think it was a heart attack, that I started the self-work. And even then, I always tried to take the easy way. I told you earlier on the Empire show, I went to the doctor and I said, can you give me some medicine? Can you give me some pills for this? I didn't want to I knew what I had to do. Yeah. But I wanted Xanax instead.
Pill for emotional development.
Right.
It's like, we don't really have that yet. Bedros.
Not yet. Yeah, but I saw Limitless. And he just took a pill. Right? So anyway, after 3 weeks of seeing that Xanax isn't going to work because it just killed all creativity and I was drooling out the side of my mouth, I started working with a therapist. And it was a 16-month experience working with a therapist where the deep work started and continues today.
And could you track changes in your decision making and the growth in the business to that work?
My decision making, my level of communication, the growth of the business. Even with this pandemic, if this pandemic happened pre deep work,
could be crippling. Yeah,
it would have probably caused a divorce, or it would have led me down to some addictive vice that would have been the end of me, because my mind would have gone down a toilet bowl. I was just like, all right, we'll just figure out how else we can make money while gyms aren't making money. I get it. Like, we were on the Inc. 500 list 3 years in a row, Entrepreneur Magazine's 150 fastest growing franchises. And I was so proud of that, and that had become my identity.
Right.
And all of a sudden, the pandemic comes, and gyms are shutting down left and right. And I'm the CEO of a fitness franchise, and gyms are shutting down left and right. My identity back then would have been tied to this, and it would have been a direct attack on who I am, and I'm not capable, and how dare they? And of course, the emotional reaction. Now I respond to a situation. Back then, I used to emotionally react to things. And of course, when there was tension, I was passive aggressive, and then I would blow up. There was no like slow build up. It was just passive aggressive, and then blow up at someone. And this pandemic was just like, oh, cool, guess what? The world's gonna go back to normal. We don't know how long. Let's not think that it's gonna be a couple months. So we're gonna shift our business to online coaching, and we're gonna grow our supplement company instead. And so we put our supplement company, it literally went from $400,000 a month in revenue to $1.5 million a month in revenue 2 months into the pandemic. Because I just changed my focus, and I said, my identity is not tied to the franchise. My identity is tied to being a good husband, being a role model father, being a good servant to society. And I could continue to serve and be a good husband and be a good father and mentor my team through the pandemic. And that's what we did. But the old me would have completely panicked, freaked out, hit the glass ceiling, and shattered.
That's awesome. And I love, there's so many ways we could take this, because this idea of identity or story is so critical for people to understand. Right? It's that we're all living a story. And if you do not do this type of work, and the work of self-awareness, you can have an entry point. Most people, frankly, will have an entry point through an emotional breakdown, like you were talking about. That's the most common. It wasn't mine. Mine was through meditation, but then it led me to uncover stuff that then, so I never had a major breakdown, but I did have the midlife crisis we talked about, where I was like desperately terrified because I was heading down the wrong path fast. And that's
but to be so self-aware at 21 years old, like, I wish I had that gift. Looking back, I wish I had a lot of things, but
I wish I had an Armenian mom with the sideburns. and mustache.
I'm going to tell her you said that.
No, don't tell me.
I am. They live right here in Anaheim too.
Okay, shoot. She's coming to me.
But yeah, it's your entry point was through meditation.
I was lucky, to stumble upon that.
But again, at the end of the day, we all had to do what? The work.
Got to do the work.
Because to stumble upon it and go, okay, I see there's something really gross and ugly that needs to be addressed. How many people know that in their life, in their marriage, in their health, with their relationship with their kids, in their business, and then never do anything about it?
They don't do, because it's hard.
It is.
And it's
not fun. It's not sexy.
And we have so many distractions, and it's so easy to just, tomorrow's, Sunday's the Super Bowl. I'll deal with this next week. And next week never comes because you keep kicking the can down the road, and then that leads to that midlife crisis. Or a serious health breakdown, mentally, physically, and emotionally.
So
you got to work on your being while you work on your doing. It's kind of like the saying, a lot of business coaches will say, you got to work in the business while you work on the business. When I say that's true, but you also got to work on yourself while you work in the business and on the business. And your business can only grow, and you said this astutely, only grow to the level of your own development.
I forget who the author was of 21 Laws of Leadership.
Robert Greene, right? Or
maybe it was Robert Greene. And he talks about how leadership is the lid. Leadership is the lid. And that's so true. And leadership, as we talked about again earlier, well, how do you become a great leader? You have to do the self-work, process through the traumas that you had, become a better decision maker, learn to communicate, understand there's many different personalities, know when you need to lead and when you need to follow. And all those things only happen when you become self-aware, do the work, kind of lean into authenticity or vulnerability. And if we don't, then we want to just bully our way through things. And that's when you have high turnover in business. That's when you have lots of lawsuits. That's when you have a chaotic and relationship with your kids, with your spouse. And I got to tell you, since I've lived both lives, it's so much easier running a bigger, more complex organization now as I'm whole than a smaller, less complex business that I felt like I was white knuckling, holding on, because I wasn't whole. I hadn't done the work.
Yeah, totally get that. And so being whole, to me, means, like, first of all, there's no there, right? We're always becoming whole. We're always becoming more. We're always becoming, I guess, finding our real truth.
Yep.
And then what that leads to is that first and foremost of importance is the service. Health, service to your own health and your spiritual side, right? God, if you will. Service to your family, service to the community, service to the world. That's first and foremost. How you serve then is the doing part.
Yeah.
And that's, okay, so in your current form, it's Fit Body Bootcamp. But, someone might come along and buy it from you in 2 years, then guess what? You got to find a new doing way to serve people.
And in fact, a dear friend of mine, Sharon Stravatza, he bought a real estate company, Kingston Lane. He bought a real estate company. He bought into a real estate company, came on board as a CEO, and they gave him lots of equity. He bought into it. And he knew that the real estate industry was like cyclical every 5 years or so. He built this company from doing $300 million in sales to $3 billion in sales, and they sold it. In that 5-year period, he had become the company. His identity was it. When I met him, it was post-sale. He had a massive exit. I met him on a private jet, and I was going to be flying to Arizona to speak at an event, and a mutual friend of myself and Sharon's reaches out and says, hey, Sharon's going to be at that event, and he wants to know if you would join him on a private jet since he's going to Scottsdale anyway. Well, sure. I was going to fly commercial. Sure, I'll fly private. So we're literally sitting kneecap to kneecap across from each other. And I'm like, hey, man, I really appreciate this opportunity. And like, is there anything I can do for you? He's like, actually, the reason I wanted you on this plane with me is so I can have 45 minutes of your undivided time because I'm lost, I'm depressed, I have no idea who I am. And it was literally a byproduct of and which got me thinking, what happens when I sell Fit Body Bootcamp? Because we're actually entertaining, selling 80% of our equity right now. And what happens when I sell Fit Body Bootcamp? What's next? And I've always thought that my identity was going to be tied into what I'm doing until that anxiety attack happened, and I met with Sharon, and I worked with my therapist, and I realized I got to always have what's next. You see this happen with NFL athletes.
Right.
They are just live and breathe for that sport, and then they retire and die.
I see it with Navy SEALs.
Navy SEAls.
Yeah.
Anybody high performing.
Any high performer or anybody who is overly identified with the doing side, with their accomplishments, that's their ego. Their ego is saying, that's me.
Yeah.
And the mistake that the ego is not them. We had this conversation earlier about the difference between your thoughts and emotions and who you really are.
Yeah.
Who you really are is like the being work. Like, find that out, and you recognize that that's all you need. It's like that saying, you can't take anything with you, but you can die trying.
Yep.
There's nobody on their deathbed who says, man, I am so happy that I built Fit Body Bootcamp and sold it for $1 billion. No, they're saying, man, I got beautiful kids and I was a good dad, right?
Yeah. So I'm happy, I'm grateful that anxiety attack happened to me, that I invested the time. And it wasn't easy, man, calling up a therapist, and because I always thought therapists are for broken people. Yeah. You know
what? Here's the thing. For all you guys listening, therapy is important.
Game changer.
Call it mental or emotional coaching, if you will.
Yeah.
Do whatever you need, little tricks in your brain to make it okay, because it's a game changer.
And I felt like
work.
because it's funny, the little mental games you're talking about, I had to do that. Because obviously being a fitness franchisor, the story of becoming a fitness franchisor was that I was a personal trainer.
Right.
And so I was a coach. I coached people in their fitness and fat loss.
So you're not supposed to have any problems.
Right, yeah. Right, exactly. Yet, I didn't believe in the value of having a mental coach, an emotional coach. That's for other people. They're broken, bad things happen to them. Well, guess what? Bad things have happened to me. If you get to a certain place in life, like, no one escapes trauma. whether it's verbal abuse, emotional abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse. And I was very open, and I shared earlier that about my sexual abuse. As a kid, between the ages of 4 and 6, I was abused sexually by 2 older boys on a consistent basis in Armenia.
Could I just pause and say, you know what they're learning, like how prevalent that shit is?
Oh my God,
and
dude.
like sexual abuse in the military, especially among women, but obviously it's both sexes.
1 out of every 4 people have had some form of sexual abuse.
Incredible.
Yeah, yeah.
That's globally, or is it in this culture?
Globally, and that was from the book "The Body Keeps the Score." Amazing
Incredible
book. Yeah. And dude, for 37 years, I kept that to myself. Until I worked with a therapist, because my wife couldn't know.
Shame, guilt.
Yep. Confusion, rage.
Yeah.
Nobody could know. And yet that governed. It was almost like if my brain is the operating system had a virus on it that would cause me to self-sabotage because I felt shame, rage, confusion, unworthy, broken, unlovable.
Dude, that's such a great metaphor.
Yeah.
It is kind of like a virus.
Yeah.
It infects your being.
It infects your being. It literally puts, the way I described it to Kevin, I said, Kevin, right now, you're a threat to me. Kevin was my therapist. I said, right now, you're a threat to me. He goes, how come? I go, because I don't know you, and I don't know what your intentions are. Like, logically, I do, but fight or flight is saying, don't trust this guy. And so thank God he took 4 weeks to work with me on my anxiety and panic attacks instead of coming out the gate and saying, hey, what happened to you as a kid? In those 4 weeks, we built a rapport. I felt safe when he asked me, how was your childhood? I felt safe with him to say this is what happened to me. Like, the man is just a brilliant dude. Again, I should be sponsored by Kevin and DeBraga's steak.
By the way, you bring up a really interesting memory of mine. And because, with our clients, we work on multidimensional development. We call it the 5 mountains. And you mentioned right earlier, you got to do the physical work, you got to do the mental work, you got to do the emotional work, you got to do the spiritual work. And in our view, we do those all together. Yeah. And when you do them together, then it unlocks a lot of growth. And then you get this accelerated growth where you become more whole and you get greater perspectives on the world and yourself. And life takes on a different meaning. And the meaning is not about what I accomplish in the world, it's about who I am and how I show up.
Yeah.
So at any rate, so with clients, like high-end clients, we're like, okay, how are we doing? You got to get some emotional coaching, go get a therapist. And often what will happen is, after a couple months, a client will be like, yeah, I'm done. Or I had one client say, yeah, my therapist fired me. And I'm like, oh, why? She goes, because she said that I was done. I didn't have any more work to do. And I was just like chuckling to myself and like, I'm sure that's exactly what she said.
Right.
What she really meant was, you're not willing to go to the next level.
Yeah.
She doesn't want to take your money until you are.
Yeah.
Right? So emotional work, you got to look at it like an onion. There's the top layer, and most people don't even want to go there. But they go there and they think, oh, yeah, I got it. Whether it's 4 weeks or 4 months or whatever, I got this, check. No check. Right? Uncheck. There's another layer. And there's another layer. And like for me, I'm waiting for another layer. And I'm like, okay, what's in
Isn't
there?
all of life the process of peeling back the layers?
I think so.
We'll never get to that nucleus of that center of that onion.
I think the center is your spirit. Like that's your raw spirit.
Yeah.
And you got to go in order to bring it out.
Yeah.
Into the world.
Yeah.
And in one layer, it's good, better than nothing, but it's not enough.
So much of it has to do, well, although I can't really say this because at 21 you had the wherewithal, but you are not the norm, and I think you know that, where that's concerned. You had the wherewithal to do some internal
I got lucky.
Checking in with yourself. Even at 16, when you were just like, hey, I'm going to go for 12, 13, 14, 15 hours into the woods, into the mountains, and you're like, I think I feel something. I feel something from within, right? Like, I don't remember experiencing that. And so that's awesome that you had that. But most of us, I think part of it is wisdom. As you grow older and you've had some experiences, you're like, you know what, fuck it. Maybe people aren't going to judge me after all. And if they do, I don't really care.
That's right.
And so I do have a therapist. I have been molested. I'll just start listing off the laundry. Like, I don't even want to talk about my successes anymore. I want to talk about all the ways I'm fucked up and broken.
That's how people learn too.
Yeah.
They want to learn. I mean, you want to hear your successes are interesting, but the learning is things that people can connect with.
Yes. Yes. And so there comes a time, I think, especially in a man's life, I think men probably, and you'll know this better than I do, exercise or see the world through ego more than women. I think women
so.
can be a little more vulnerable.
Yeah.
Whereas
Wired
men,
differently.
yeah, we're fists up with everything.
Right.
But I've learned, man, when we sell Fit Body Boot Camp, the work of service continues. It's just how I'll be serving humanity will be different, and I have an idea. Obviously, I've got 2 more books I plan on writing. I'm now created this thing called The Project, the Modern Day Night Project, helping men build themselves up in faith, family, fitness, and finance to have a greater sense of fulfillment.
Sounds a lot like this guy came through SEALFIT named Garrett White, created a program called Wake Up Warrior.
Wake Up Warrior, yep.
And he had a similar idea to help men through overcome business struggles, but by becoming a different, better person, waking up to their potential and whatnot.
Exactly. Becoming a better man, a man of service, and not having your identity tied to money. And there's nothing wrong with. I love money. I love money. I love the experiences it gives me. I love the steaks that I can buy for my friends. I love, I love money. Money is a vehicle to freedom, and I could donate to charities and causes. But
the more money, the more you can serve.
Yes.
But the money's flowing. It's an energy source.
Bingo.
It's not meant to be hoarded. And,
not meant to be a chevron on my arm of my value or worth or status. But it used to be.
Yeah.
It's almost like I've got 2 lives, man. Pre-anxiety attack, post-anxiety attack. Yeah. Because money then was
that was your wake-up call.
Yeah, I needed that.
There was a leadership author, Zalesnik, I think, and he almost used a biblical term for this. He said leaders, real leaders are twice born.
Oh, that's profound.
Isn't that cool?
Real
twice
leaders
born. So you had a rebirth as a leader.
Yeah.
At first as a human, but then of course you're a leader in terms of every man is.
Yeah.
Every woman is too, but every man's a leader of their family, hopefully.
Yeah.
Leader of something, right? And that's why we were put in this planet, the man's role. And the twice-born leader is the one who's woken up to their ego, to the falsity of that story, and then they begin to live on a different path.
Yeah. Do you know, just through your experience, is there an average age or season of life that people come to that awakening?
It's typically right around when you had it. Now, of course, it's changing, right? Our world is changing because of what we're doing right here, right? What we're doing is helping others have insight to this issue, whereas they might not have had insight to this issue, and they might be able to look at that and be like, holy shit, I need to get a therapist. And they might be 30 or 28, right?
Yeah.
Whereas when we grew up, or when I grew up, of course, I mean, this iPhone sitting next to me with a little clock running, that certainly didn't exist. We had 3 TV channels on the TV.
Right.
And that helped me with my meditation because my brain was able to concentrate more. I didn't have all that distraction. I hadn't been trained in that distraction. But I think still there's also way more to it than just those things, the availability of information. And I think it really is, this is more of a spiritual concept. It's your karmic path, right? It's like we have this reason that we're on this planet. And when we're living the false story, then you're not living in alignment with the reason. Be a great title of a book, right?
Sure.
It's your calling, right?
Right. The calling.
It's the reason you're here. And so the more you live that false story, the further and further you get away from the reason, the more painful it gets.
Mm-hmm. More friction in your life.
And so the more you then drown out that cry of your spirit through more distraction, more alcohol, more sex, more drugs, more Xanax, then the more you barrel towards some breakdown. And depending upon either when that's supposed to happen, or depending upon how physically strong you are and you're just gutting through it, that breakdown's going to happen. There's only so long that the human being can deal with that dichotomy.
Right.
Right? And some people, man, they can deal with it their entire life, and then they're on their deathbed and they're just absolutely in despair.
Yeah.
And then others, but then they can find peace, right?
Yeah, you're
they
right.
Can find peace in a moment or in a few days before their death, and that's great. Others find it really early, like I did. But I think the average is in their 40s.
Yeah. So it happened to me at 37, happened to your friend of mine at 38, happened to another friend of mine at 38, and I started seeing this pattern. I did see a pattern, and I don't know if just kind of life culminates for the average guy right around then, or something happens where we're not able to just white knuckle through anymore. But that was a very pivotal moment for me, and it's neat to hear you. The way you said it, you said somebody we enter. How did you describe that? You said we enter. There's an entrance or there's a pathway to self-development or doing that self-work.
Right.
And for me, it came through by way of that anxiety attack. But where I was trying to go with this is, I do remember rationalizing it and saying, well, I'm having panic attacks and anxiety attacks because our franchise is growing. Like, I remember actually saying this to my wife, like, look, this is happening because our franchise is growing and we need more employees, and I don't know much about franchising yet, so I'm going to learn about it. Really, this is all happening not because I need to do the self-work, but because of this exterior, outside thing taking place. And my wife is very well in tune with the Brahman, with the universe. And she's like, hey, do you think that there's maybe some issues that you need to talk through and work through with someone? Because bringing back up the fact that you will get into an argument over something small that's a 3 on the Richter scale and you show up as a 9 or a 10. And then for the first time I was like, yeah, maybe there is. Maybe there is. But it was such a neat thing to be able to do that work.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
What is your daily practice consist of right now?
For the last 9 years, I developed a morning routine that I believe sets me up to win the day. Now, being an entrepreneur, you might walk into a situation where somebody, HR, walks up to you and says, hey, we have to deal with a lawsuit. There will always be ambushes throughout my day.
Always going to be something, yeah.
But that said, I'll wake up at 5:30 every day, and I even have this goofy little routine. I'm a big believer that if you hit the snooze button, you are already breaking the first promise to yourself that you set the night before, right? And you're telling your subconscious mind that I'll take 10 more minutes of interrupted sleep over waking up and living my path and my purpose.
I love that. Yeah.
And so I'll set the alarm for 5:30, but the rule, I operate by rules because if I don't have rules, I'll go off the hinges. That's me. Like, more is always better for me. So a little bit of cocaine is good. A lot must be better, right? Same with pizza. 1 slice is good.
Of course.
5 boxes.
I'm with you on the pizza
right,
part.
Right.
I'm not sure about the cocaine.
Yeah. I've only done cocaine once, and thankfully, my addictive habit kicked me into doing it a lot, and it was such a bad experience that I never did it again. But anyways, having said that, I lost my train of thought. Where are we going?
Morning ritual.
Oh, morning ritual. And so I'll wake up at 5:30. And so I know that I'm human, that I'm going to be tempted to hit the snooze button. And if I stack, I always look at life. Life is all about stacking either W's or L's, wins or losses. And so if I hit the snooze button, my first act of the day is an L.
It's an L, huh?
Telling my subconscious mind to start stacking more L's. So since I'm human, I've turned off the actual snooze feature. You can turn that feature off where when your alarm goes off, all you can do is turn it off. If you want more sleep, you have to go and reset your alarm.
Cool. I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah, so I've turned off the snooze feature because I'm human and the snooze button is tempting. Wake up at 5:30 or sooner. If my eyes open between that 30-minute window, 5 and 5:30, I'll just get up. 30 ounces of water immediately, and I learned that through Sean Stevenson, who wrote the book Sleep Smarter and Eat Smarter. Great books. 30 ounces of water immediately. Shower, go downstairs, and send out 3 gratitude text messages to 3 people I'm thankful and grateful for first thing in the morning. And that is also a selfish thing. Because no matter how shitty my day gets after that,
It makes you feel good, yeah.
I feel good. And sometime throughout the day, those 3 people are going to respond. And they always go, thank you so much. That meant so much to me. I really needed to hear that. So it's like 3 people patted me on the back.
You get back what you give out.
That's it. That's
awesome.
it. Yeah. And so after I send out
And
those...
they get back twice, because you leave a carbon copy on you when you do that nice act, and then it also comes back to you. So you get a twofer.
Yep.
Anyways.
And so it'll be a little bit of journaling after that, just 10, 15 minutes of just putting thoughts to paper. And then the night before, I made what I call my GSD list, get shit done list, in the notes section. It's usually 3 to 5 things that I call the needle movers. They move the needle of either meaning or money. Those are the 2 things that I am currently after. in life because I use a lot of my money to donate to Shriners Children's Hospital and Compassion International. I have a soft spot for those two organizations. For the last decade, we've been donating to them. And so money and meaning, and so it might be a phone call to a friend that's, hey, I'm gonna need your help in donating money, or in this thing we can do together to raise money. So I'll go through my GSD list. By this point, it's 9 a.m. I'll have a protein shake and off to the gym I go. Go and work out. Come here to HQ, shower up, and I'm ready to take on the day with my team.
Nice.
Yeah, but my real deep work happens between 7 and 9 a.m. on my business. And then, of course, from the time I woke up, 5:30 to 7 a.m., just that gratitude text messages and some journaling, playing with Cookie. You met Cookie, our dog. She requires the ball being kicked 12 times. She's got me well trained. Yeah, but the biggest thing is stack that first W.
Yeah.
Get that first W, and you'll have more W's throughout the day. And then what I realized is, people go, hey, what's the secret to become a multimillionaire? There is no one secret. Just stack little wins, and those little wins make today a win, and today makes, you do 7 of those, and now you have a week that you won. Do 4 of those, you have a month that you won. Do 12 of those, you won a year. Do 10 of those, you've won a decade.
That's right.
Like, that's just how I win.
Daisy chain it.
Yeah.
And the only thing to add to that is to make sure you're clear about where you want that decade to go.
Yes. Yes.
You don't have to have a perfect idea of what the end point is, because you don't want to try to define that, because then you lose the magic and the mystery, and you're going to be let down. But you want to know where you're going, like where's your true north, or what's the vision.
Yeah.
And that takes, that also probably happens in that 5 to 7:30 time period, right? That's when you work on the vision. That's when you get the ideas with your journaling. That's the same thing with mind time, right?
Yep. Well, you ask yourself, and these days people ask on social media, how do I find my purpose? And I used to be that guy asking myself, how do I find my purpose?
Yeah, it's not like you have to do a treasure hunt out here.
Right. It's not found. It's not to be found. It's not lost in the first place.
It's not gone.
You develop your purpose. Right. Like, what really feels meaningful and fulfilling to me and significant? Serving people. Like, I realized that. I used to wake up at 4 a.m. to train my first client at 5 a.m. at the Diamond Bar LA Fitness. She was a very angry police detective in LAPD, angry, bitter at life. But man, I could put a smile on her face first thing in the morning.
That's awesome.
And I used to love waking up and doing that. And first thing in the morning, people have morning breath, and sometimes they're not too pleasant, and sometimes when you're stretching them out, they fart. And Mark, I didn't care. Look, like, this is a down and dirty part about personal training that people don't tell you. I got a friend who's a dentist. He goes, his name is Mark Costas. He goes, every day people walk in and go, I hate dentists. I hate dentists. He goes, all day long I heard people telling me they hate dentists. And then he goes, what they didn't tell me in dental school is when you're in people's mouths, you get their blood, you get their pus, you get their spit all over you. I'm like, shoot, Mark, I never thought of that. I always thought dentists are like these, stand-up people. He goes, I fucking hate my life. Interestingly enough, he sold his 4 practices, and now he's like a real estate investor and enjoying life. But there's things about every industry that you don't know, right? And one of them in personal training is the morning breath.
Nor do you want to know.
Right? Or do you want to know? So anyway, all that. But I was like, okay, what do I enjoy? I didn't enjoy necessarily working at a restaurant as a fry cook when I was a fry cook at Disneyland, but I certainly enjoy serving people and just helping them, developing them. Well, what other areas could I help develop them? From fitness, it led to their mindset. From mindset, it led to that I've got this gift of entrepreneurship, and now I coach and consult entrepreneurs, and I like that. And then from there, it's like, well, I coach and consult male and female entrepreneurs, and I like working with male entrepreneurs more, simply because I understand them more, and more of them show up all messed up like I am, and I realize they need to do the self-work, so I go, hey, I'm going to teach you how to make money, and they go, yeah, I'll take that. And once they give me that $50,000 for the year of coaching, I wrap that making money thing up with self-development and the self-work. And let me introduce you to Kevin. I've referred 27 of my coaching clients now to Kevin.
You sell them what they want and give them what they need.
Yes, yes. And I realize how much I like that. And so my purpose, as my seasons of life go on, my purpose just keeps developing into now this thing called the project. And I don't know what's next, but I can tell you it'll be serving humanity in some capacity to help them elevate to their higher self.
Bingo.
In the process, I become a better
more
version
and whole
of me.
And, right. You working with teens for helping with the rites of passage, which is a huge issue in our culture.
Yeah.
Tell us about that. Now I know we got to wrap up pretty soon.
Yeah. So actually, through the project. So the project is a 75-hour men's development thing where actually one of your peers, Ray Care,
Ray Cash Care.
Ray Cash
What a
Care,
great guy.
former Navy SEAL. He runs the program for me, and he's the head instructor for the project. I teach the business and mindset development. We have some subject matter experts, but it's 75 hours, and these men go through this experience. And every one of them who go through it are usually married, have kids, and are business owners. And they go, man, I wish I had this when I was a kid. I go, man, I wish I had this as a kid too. And when my wife was pregnant with Andrew, her uncle, Uncle John, who's our CPA, full circle there with the CPA stuff, Uncle John gave me this book called Raising a Modern Day Knight. I forget the author's name.
Interesting.
Great book. And it was talking about how there were exactly what you described on the show earlier, which was these tribes, these communities would send their young, 13, 14-year-olds out into the forests, and you stay out there for a period of time. And if you survive and you come back, we will now accept you as a man, as a leader of you have a seat at the table, as Joseph Campbell says. Right. Well, that all stopped, that rite of passage, where young girls, like my daughter Chloe, she started to sprout boobs. She had a very physical thing that happened. She had a menstrual cycle, a very physical thing. What happens to a young man that says you are now a man? Nothing. Yet we have this internal drive, but we're taught to suppress it. And so nothing physical happens. And so that rite of passage was needed. So after reading Raising a Modern Day Knight, and after creating that rite of passage experience for my son, a friend of mine owns a shoot house in Boise, Idaho. He's a former SWAT operator. And I said, his name is Matt. I said, Matt, would you mind if I fly Andrew out here to your place along with 9 other men that I really look up to, and we can just put Andrew through a really tough day of just stress and overwhelm because it's, clearing rooms and all that stuff. I said, but we're not going to use obviously real ammunition, use the simulation stuff that you have. And he set this whole experience up. And at the end of the day, we formed a circle around my son. And I asked each of these men who I respect and look up to pour into Andrew and give one piece of advice that they wish they had when they were 13. And these were guys like former Rangers and the SWAT guy and a Green Beret and entrepreneur friends of mine, and all of us were crying, just crying, saying we wish we had someone do this to us. And all of that was learned from that book, Raising a Modern Day Knight. And so I was like, man, okay, these guys are asking about it. I did it with Andrew. Maybe I need to create this experience where fathers and their sons who are 13 to 15 years old can come out for a day to our compound here, and we can put them through this experience, and at the end, build that circle around them. So it's a very physical experience. No one can quit. It's not like ringing a bell and quit. Fathers and sons together, and then we peel the fathers off, peel them away, because your protector is now gone. Just like back in the old days, the men in the tribe would put on masks, and they would come into the house, and they would peel that young boy away from the mom's arms. And it would start off by, then they would start fighting that boy, intentionally losing the fight. And the idea was, you're no longer mom's boy. You are now fighting, and the masks were, you're fighting the gods, if you will. And by beating the gods, then they would take the mask off and they'd slap it on the boy's face, and they would say, now you're one of us. And now go into the forest, and when you come out, you'll be a man, and we're going to start giving you a seat at the table and forging you into a man. That doesn't exist, and we need that. We need protectors, we need providers, we need savage servants. And one of my favorite quotes, I hope I don't slaughter this, is strong men create good times create weak men create bad times create strong men.
Yeah, that's awesome. We're in that.
We're in it.
We're in that.
We're in it.
Weak men create bad times.
Jiminy Christmas, we're in it. So anyway, that's what so we call it the Squire program, because but when we peel the fathers away halfway through the Squire program, it's a 14-hour experience, about 6 hours. We peel the fathers away and we bring them here to HQ. And then myself, Ray, and this guy Aaron who works with us, we mentor those kids and put them through hardship and really hey, Dad's not here to support you anymore. Start making decisions.
How old are these kids?
13 to 15.
13 to 15, I think you said that.
Yeah, and the 4 things we teach them during that time is you're going to lead, you're going to problem solve, you're going to communicate, and you're going to ask for help, teamwork.
Nice.
And we constantly create scenarios for them over that 6-hour period. for them to have that experience, and we give them direct feedback, and we are harsher with them. And then as the dads come, they literally, every single dad goes, holy shit, this is a different young man. This is a different young man. At the end, we have a great dinner together, graduation, et cetera. And it's something I wish I had.
Yeah, no kidding. Me too.
So it's that I would do for free for the rest of my life if I could. And who knows, I might once we sell the franchise, right?
Non-profit or something.
Yeah.
Or franchise. That's good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Wow. Well, we could talk forever, but we're not going to.
Okay. Well, we need conversation for the next steak dinner.
That's right. We're going to save something for that next Wagyu dinner.
That's right.
Man up. This is about your life and your lessons of life.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. That's, I'm going to read it.
Thank you.
Normally I try to read these, but I keep saying this. I try to read the books.
Dude, don't bother.
Before I do the interviews. But I think it's pretty coolio.
Coolio.
I think you're pretty coolio.
And by the way, I've been a big fan for many years, and so to me it is very surreal, not only to be sitting here and talking to you, but having you at my house for dinner, and to be able to interview you for my show. So it's just crazy how hard work does pay off, and the people that you look up to and you've learned from, you could sit at, like, I had a seat at the table with you.
Yeah.
That is a pretty fucking cool thing, man. So I appreciate that opportunity as well.
Yeah, likewise.
Yeah.
Thanks for your time today. Where do we find out about the project and Squire? Because I know people can Google Fit Body Bootcamp. You can go to Amazon and buy this awesome book.
Yep.
We can look for your future books. But man, this work you're doing with the project and the Squire is really valuable.
Yeah, so the best place for that is just to find me on Instagram at Bedros Keuilian and to send me a DM. And it's one of those things where we do it organically.
You don't have a website or anything like that
We literally don't have a website for it. And what I do is I take the people and I put them on the phone with Ray or Steve, the SEAL or the Marine, and they explain to them what it is and how it works and how much it is, and say, do you want to do it? And the answer is yes. Great, you can do it. Okay. Or they can just go to manup.com and fill out a form there. But there's no like committed website yet. We will have one soon. Yeah.
What's the Instagram handle again?
At Bedros Keuilian.
At Bedros Keuilian.
Coolio. At Bedros Keuilian.
Awesome. Bedros, thanks so much for your time today, brother.
Thank you, Mark. Man. Appreciate you, man.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
That's it, folks. Thanks for joining us. Go check out Bedros and his work. And man, if you got a boy, send him to Instagram, or you go to Instagram, or DM. Is that what they call it?
Yes, sir. DM. Look at you. You're so hip, man.
Getting there. And until next time, stay focused and be coolio.
Be coolio.
Hoo-yah. Divine out.